Hi, I'm going to show you a super useful extension for Visual Studio that gives you a Postman-like GUI for working with .http files and sending HTTP requests. I've just created a new ASP.NET API project. I'm going to install HttpDesigner from the Extensions menu. And restart Visual Studio, allowing the extension to install. Now the project is loaded and we can see the HttpDesigner window. On the left there is a default requests.http file which the extension creates for you outside of your project. It's kind of a global place to store miscellaneous requests. Also, this project template included a web application 1.http file. So that is already part of the new project, and HttpDesigner shows it here. If you don't have that or want to create a new .http file, just right click on the project and choose Add Collection File. This isn't necessary, but just to show you what is going on, if I open the web application 1.http file in the Solution Explorer, I can see the default .http file created by Visual Studio. To view it in HttpDesigner, I just click the request listed under web application 1.http. From there I can view the URL, HTTP method and the specifics of the request. Notice that under headers we see the accept header specified in the .http file, and also some automatic headers that can be sent with calculated values. You can also see that the URL of the request uses a variable web application 1 underscore host address. To edit variables in HttpDesigner, you can click the variables item under the .http file and use the grid to modify the variables. To send the request, we're going to run the project and click send. The response appears on the right along with cookies and headers. I can add a description and save the file. The description was saved as a meta comment. When you save, you can see that the .http file does get some extra data added. And also get parameters can be added, like so, as well as auth credentials and a body. Now the body tab is used for post methods, so let's create one as an example. With either the .http file or a request under it selected, we click the plus and we're going to change the method to post, and I'm going to use the same address as in the get. I don't need those parameters. Now our weather forecast controller, which is here, needs a method to handle post requests. So I'm just going to add some code in here. This is for the get, and then down here we can add this post code, including a class for the data type that is expected as an argument to the method. I'll save that. And also, to show how cookies work, I will add some code to the method to send a cookie in the response and some code to check cookies that came in the request. So I'm just going to add that here. So this line just adds a cookie to the response, and then these lines just process any cookies that come in the request. So I'm going to add a breakpoint here so that we can inspect that. I'm going to restart the project and send the request. Okay, and it's given us an error, and the reason for that is that we didn't give it a city data. So what we're going to do is go into the body of the request, set it to raw JSON, and then specify the name property for our city, and the value is just test. And we'll send that again, and this time it worked, and we can inspect the cookies, and there are none as expected. So continue sending it, and if we look over here under cookies, we can see that cookie that we set earlier. And if I go to cookies in the request, I can see that cookie that came in the response, and if I check this box and then send, that cookie will be sent as part of the next request. So here we go, we can see the cookies, and indeed that cookie was sent back. Environments. .http files can work with sets of variables that belong to user-defined environments. That means that you can have variables like hostname that have one value in one environment, like development, and another value in another environment, like production. The environments file is called http-client.env.json, and it exists in the project. To create an environment, just right-click on environment variables and choose add environment. The default name is variables, but I'll change it to development. Now I can define the variable web application 1 underscore host address in the grid. I'm going to set it to dev host, even though I know that name doesn't exist, just for illustration. I can also add another environment, which I'll call production, and again define the variable. Again, this is fictional and it won't actually work, but we'll be able to see that the variable was used. Now, according to the .http spec, if a variable is defined in the .http file, that value will take precedence over the value in the environment file. So I will remove the variable from the .http so we can see it working. Switch back to the request tab and choose the production environment. Send it, and I don't expect it to work, and we see that it did try to connect to prod host, so we can see that the production value was used. And if we change to development, again it will use the development environment variable dev host. If a user specific environment file is present, this would be named http client env.json.user, then that will also appear in the tree view and can be edited the same way as the global environments file. So that's a pretty quick tour of HttpDesigner. If you have any questions, please post below in the comments, and if you appreciated this video, a like and subscribe would of course be great. Thank you. Since you're working with APIs, you might be interested in another free extension we made called Conveyor, which allows you to access your web application from other devices on your network, or even through internet tunneling. Conveyor also has a request debugger like Fiddler, where you can inspect requests coming into your server and modify and then resend them. So try out Conveyor. You can find it in the Visual Studio extensions menu.